Is the United States in danger of losing its competitive edge in science and technology? A new intelligence report argues that America is falling behind. That says China has been making big moves in recent years, from attracting more talent to its universities to hosting the world's top 10 research institutions in key technological fields, with some secret operations too. As Beijing works to leapfrog U.S. technology, will Washington regain its lost ground, or will China take the lead? What do you think? Let us know below, and subscribe if you haven't already. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Is the U.S. losing its edge in science and technology? A security think tank highlighted that concern in its Thursday report. The key findings? From quantum computing to hypersonic missiles and future technologies, China is surging ahead. But how? Let's take a closer look.
In 37 out of 44 key technologies and researches examined, China has a stunning lead over the U.S. and other nations. That's according to the Australian Strategic Policy Institute's latest study, funded by the U.S. State Department. Its report puts Chinese researchers ahead of Americans across critical sectors like defense, space, robotics, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and quantum technology. In some fields, all of the world's top 10 research institutions are found to be based in China. Among the 44 technologies, the U.S. leads research in the remaining 7. Those are fields like semiconductor design and development, as well as computers and vaccines. The report says China's current technological leadership also gives it an advantage in future technologies that don't yet exist. But why is the U.S. falling behind? An intelligence community program's founder explains.
And whoever gets the breakthrough first wins. Okay. Actually, that's not what China's doing. They are maneuvering in all technology worldwide, both offensively and defensively, to generate a competitive advantage.
That's as China has been accused of stealing valuable technologies from the West and manipulating supply chains. Data also shows 1/5 of top Chinese researchers were trained in a Five Eyes country, an intelligence alliance comprising the U.S., Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the U.K. As to why that matters, according to the report, China's current research strength in quantum communication could result in it going dark to Western surveillance and intelligence. China also has a particular interest and performance in military and space sectors, like hypersonics. What's more, the report found that China is likely to emerge with a monopoly in 10 fields, like synthetic biology, as well as electric batteries, 5G, and nano manufacturing. The study is now calling for alliance among democratic nations to create secure supply chains and greater research investment.
The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, is taking issue with Tesla CEO Elon Musk. That's over his comments on the possibility COVID-19 leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Beijing denies the lab leak theory. On Sunday, some Twitter users accused Dr. Anthony Fauci, former chief medical advisor to the president, of funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. The lab is at the center of the dispute about COVID-19's origin. One user asked whether that means Fauci funded the development of COVID-19. Musk replied that Fauci funded it through a pass-through organization called EcoHealth. Some background: documents show the National Institutes of Health, a U.S. federal agency, gave millions of dollars to EcoHealth for research on bat-based coronaviruses. EcoHealth then gave $600,000 to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The project was pulled by the Trump administration in 2020 after the pandemic broke out. Back to Musk, Chinese state-run media soon criticized the Tesla founder, warning him that he could be, quote, smashing his pot in China. The saying is similar to the idea of Musk biting the hand that feeds him. China is Tesla's second largest market. The regime keeps an eye on Western businesses that operate in China and often takes drastic action if it feels they're stepping out of line. One of Apple's top manufacturers says Chinese supplies are pouring out of the country. AirPods maker Gore-Tex says the companies are bracing for impact, preparing for potential conflict between Washington and Beijing. And as some of them shift out of China, they're headed for other locales in Asia. Sam Brownback, former U.S. ambassador at large for international religious freedom, points out the long-term impacts of backing a nation run by an authoritarian regime.
If you're a big company, you want to come in, you want to invest $500,000, they'll subsidize it, they'll make sure you have the labor there, they'll make sure that the roads are there, and they'll do it quickly. But that doesn't mean it's good on a long term for you or your company or for global peace.
GoerTech's deputy chairman says the tech company is funneling $280 million into a new factory in Vietnam. It's also looking to grow in India, the new hotspot for investor interest, both for its market and manufacturing abilities. Apple's manufacturing ecosystem is centered in China, with device makers like GoerTech and Foxconn based there. Those companies together employ millions of workers. So the Silicon Valley tech giant has tiptoed around the idea of reducing its China-based investment. Some reports suggest it could take nearly a decade to relocate just 10% of Apple's capacity. Well, the GoerTech executive believes it may happen significantly faster. American tech giants are urging companies like GoerTech to venture outside China. That's amid Washington's wide-reaching microchip and export restrictions on Beijing. One of the world's top investment firms is looking to vet certain clients tied to its China branch, and it's reaching out to U.S. national security experts for help. Sequoia Capital's China arm pulled in a record $8.5 billion in 2022. Some of that money came from major institutional investors, prompting concerns on Capitol Hill. To address them, the company reportedly voiced plans to screen certain investments those funds make. Independent U.S.-based experts will handle that vetting process and search out any possible national security concerns. As for what's subject to that screening, it targets investments in Chinese semiconductor or quantum computing companies. Sequoia China made nearly 24 investments in Chinese semiconductors and tech companies from 2021 to 2022, but hasn't pushed new backing since the screening process began. The Biden administration is expected to soon unveil investment restrictions as well as its own screening process. Those rules will also target Chinese companies making advanced technology. China is building its own LEO satellites in an effort to stifle Starlink, operated by Elon Musk's SpaceX. LEO is short for low Earth orbit. This type of satellite operates at a very low altitude from the ground, aiming to provide high-speed internet services in remote locations. With the U.S. tightening rules for semiconductor exports to China, Chinese leader Xi Jinping is calling to develop Beijing's own self-reliant technology. Chinese state-owned spacecraft maker CASIC will launch its first LEO satellite in September. Beijing sees Starlink as a U.S. military tool for surveillance. That's as the satellites carry devices which monitor the space environment. Last year, Chinese military researchers repeatedly called for advancing new technologies to destroy Starlink once its satellites entered China's sensitive space region. Elon Musk says Chinese officials have directly asked to not provide Starlink services in China. Starlink is also playing a major role amid the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Last year, Elon Musk agreed to enable internet services to Ukraine to counter Russia's internet controls. Fewer births than deaths. China saw its population decrease last year for the first time in 6 decades, a dire economic situation, blocking many young couples from having children. Now, the population drops is posing massive challenges to the world's second-largest economy. Here's the story.
There are no golden years of comfort for Wang Fengqin, a 70-year-old villager in China's Rust Belt province of Heilongjiang. Despite growing pains in her abdomen, she avoids going to hospital. Instead, her and her husband's old-age pensions support their 2 sons who are in their 40s.
Other people say, Wang Fengqin, you are so blessed to have 2 sons, but they don't earn enough, and so I have to support them.
As China's birth rate falls and workforce shrinks, the strain on the country's fragmented, poorly funded pension system has soared. China's population dropped for the first time in 6 decades last year, and Heilongjiang is a cautionary tale of the ticking demographic time bomb faced by the rest of the country. Over a quarter of Heilongjiang's people were aged 60 or above by last year. The province, which borders Russia in the north, has among the lowest birth rates and smallest average pension incomes. And the dependence of younger generations on pensions in Heilongjiang also bodes ill for local government finances and efforts to boost birth rates. Reuters spoke to 32-year-old Harbin resident Ma Haiyang, who still lives with his mother and says he will never have children, except in the unlikely event he becomes a millionaire. He theorizes it's the norm in northeast China for parents to subsidize their children. Currently, 11 of China's 31 provincial-level jurisdictions are running pension budget deficits, with Heilongjiang's being the biggest. China launched its private pension sector last year after 4 years of pilots. But what is in the works is unclear. Any reforms are likely to be unpopular. After recent cuts to medical benefits in some provinces, video online showed hundreds of older people taking to the streets this month in the cities of Wuhan and Dalian to protest the moves.
What does life look like for the region's retired farmers? Wang Zhengling is 71 years old. He works 10 hours a day. It's a common schedule for the farmers of his age in the province. He and his wife each have about 3 acres of land. They can farm it themselves or rent it to others in the village for a small income. On top of that, they receive pensions equivalent to about $15 a month.
The Communist Party gives us around 100 yuan a month.
To make ends meet, Wang must repair roads and perform other odd jobs. Heilongjiang used to be China's industrial heartland, but in the past decades, a great number of state-owned factories were shut down due to poor economic returns. Some moved south, and much of the working-age population followed. Warnings about Beijing's military expansion are getting louder. The latest comes from U.S. Navy Secretary Carlos del Toro. He says China is outpacing the U.S. in the number of ships it operates, but not in the quality of them. Here's more.
The U.S. is falling behind China in terms of warship production. That's the warning from U.S. Navy Secretary Carlos del Toro when he addressed the National Press Club. The Navy chief says Beijing seeks more than 400 vessels by 2030, up from the current 340. This compares to the less than 300 ships the U.S. now possesses. The Pentagon plans to field 350 warships by 2045, which still lags behind China. And that isn't counting the retirement of older ships. Del Toro points to Beijing's shipyard output as a real threat. While China has 13 shipyards churning out naval vessels, the U.S. has only 7. Del Toro says that a key factor behind the gap is that the U.S. is struggling to find skilled labor, but Communist China sees no restrictions on its labor use. He explains they use slave labor in building their ships, but that's what we're up against, so it does present a significant advantage. He cautions that the potential shift in naval dominance might rattle the world order, considering China's threats to Taiwan and the South China Sea. But this doesn't mean that the U.S. has lost its position as a superpower at sea. Del Toro stresses, quote, "In many ways, our shipbuilders are better shipbuilders. That's why we have a more modern, more capable, more lethal Navy than they do. They script their people to fight. We actually train our people to think." Worth noting, the U.S. Navy still has more tonnage than China, meaning larger and heavier armed vessels and stronger missile launch capabilities.
Another U.S. weapons sale to Taiwan is getting the green light. Washington approved the potential sale of close to $620 million in new weapons for the island on Wednesday. That includes missiles for its F-16 fighter jets and related equipment. Let's zoom in.
The sale includes 200 air-to-air missiles and 100 missiles that can take out land-based radar stations. It also includes launchers and aircraft interface computers, as well as training and test munitions, technical and logistic support, and spare parts. The main contractors are Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, 2 firms Beijing recently sanctioned. The island's defense ministry thanked the U.S. in a statement today. It says the decision to continue supplying defensive weapons will help maintain stability in the region and that it's fresh proof of solid relations between the U.S. and Taiwan.
Taiwan's defense ministry reported large-scale Chinese Air Force incursions Thursday, the 2nd day in a row. It observed 19 Chinese aircraft flying in Taiwan's air defense zone on Wednesday and says it spotted 21 aircraft in the last 24 hours. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 2 years. Here's what to look out for in our second half. The religious freedom situation in China is a contentious one, but what's really behind it?
The god of the church is Xi Jinping, and what he wants to do is to create a political system in which he is venerated and viewed as a quasi-religious figure.
We sat down with Brett Scharfs, director of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies at the Brigham Young University, to find out more. The full episode is available on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up, click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.